मेरे ख्याल से अब शायद सारे कार्यक्रम का संचालन हिंदी में ही हो तो उचित रहेगा। जैसे कि मेरे खुद के गुरु डॉक्टर काशीकर सर जी ने कहा कि यहाँ पर मंच पर और मंच के बाहर भी अतिरिक्त ऑनलाइन प्लेटफॉर्म या मंच पर काफ़ी सारे लोग हिंदी भाषी भी हैं। तो अगर कोई त्रुटि रहे तो मैं क्षमा प्रार्थी हूँ और मैं आगे का संचालन हिंदी में ही करूँगा। इसके साथ हमारा पहला सत्र समाप्त होता है और हम आगे के सत्र की तरफ आगे बढ़ते हैं। इस सत्र में हम पुस्तक एन एंटायरली न्यू हिस्ट्री ऑफ इंडिया बाय फ्रांसवा गोतिया के बारे में चर्चा करेंगे, जिसके सेशन मॉडरेटर होंगे कुलदीप लहरू जी। मैं उन्हें आग्रह करूंगा कि मंच पर आएं और इस पुस्तक के बारे में और फ्रांकोआ गोतिया जी के बारे में बड़ी प्रस्तावना रखें। उनके लिए जोरदार तालियां।
અહીં ઉપસ્થિત સૌ મહાનુભાવો, સામે હું ખરેખર ખૂબ જ જુનિયર લેવલનો છું અને મને આ તક આપી ભારત મંથને અલ્કેશભાઈ, શિરીષભાઈએ, અને એના માટે ખરેખર આપનો ખૂબ ખૂબ ધન્યવાદ. કાર્યક્રમની શરૂઆતમાં જ મારા હાથમાં માઇક પકડાવી દીધું. ભૂલ કરી લાગે છે એવું લાગે છે, કારણ કે 1 વર્ષ પછી માંડ માઇક હાથમાં આવ્યું છે અને પત્રકારો એટલે બોલવા માટે પંકાયેલા હોય. એનીવે, ગભરાશો નહીં મિત્ર, હું ઔરંગઝેબ નથી અને આપને ત્રાસ દેવાય નથી આવ્યો. એટલે મારી પાસે મેં સાથે મારા પોઈન્ટ સાથે જ રાખ્યા છે કે આટલું જ બોલવાનું છે. મને એક ટાઈમ આપી દીધો છે, લિમિટ આપી દીધી કે 10 મિનિટથી વધારે ના લેતા, કારણ કે ઘણા બધા બીજા કાર્યક્રમો આગળ આપણે ટાઈમસર ચલાવવાના છે. એટલે એ પોઈન્ટ સાથે જ હું આગળ વધીશ. તો ફ્રાન્સવા મારા ગુરુ છે, તો પહેલા એમને વંદન. ગુરુ ગોવિંદ દોનો ખડે, કાકો લાગુ પાઈ, બલિહારી ગુરુ આપકી જો ગોવિંદ દિયો બતાય. સવાયા ભારતીય ફ્રાન્સવા સાહેબનો પરિચય આપીશ. સવાયા ભારતીય અને ભારત માતાને સમર્પિત એવા પત્રકારત્વ ક્ષેત્રે મને પાપા પગલી કરાવનાર મારા ગુરુ અને મારા પિતા તુલ્ય શ્રી ફ્રાન્સવા ગોતિયેજીને મારા પ્રણામ. ફ્રાન્સના પેરિસમાં જન્મેલા ફ્રાન્સવા ગોતિયેજીએ ફ્રાન્સના મુખ્ય ગણાતા એક અખબાર લા ફેગારો માટે 10 વર્ષ સુધી સાઉથ એશિયા કોરસ્પોન્ડન્ટ તરીકે ફરજ બજાવી. ફ્રાન્સવાજીએ લખેલા અને ખૂબ જ વંચાયેલા અંગ્રેજી પુસ્તકોમાં ઇન ડિફેન્સ ઓફ બિલિયન હિન્દુસ, હિન્દુ પાવર ઇન ધ 21st સેન્ચુરી તથા ફ્રેન્ચ ભાષામાં યુન નોવેલ હિસ્ટુઆર ધ લેન્ડ, લે મો દ્યુ દેર્નિયર દલાઈ લામા અને યુન એન્સાઇક્લોપેડિયા ધ લાયુર્વેદાનો સમાવેશ થાય છે. ફ્રાન્સવાજી 30 વર્ષ પહેલા એક ભારતીય મહિલા સાથે લગ્નના પવિત્ર બંધને બંધાયા. તેઓ પુના ખાતે ભારતીય ઇતિહાસ પર એક મ્યુઝિયમ બનાવી રહ્યા છે. આથી તેઓ એમના ધર્મપત્ની નમ્રિતા ગોતિએ સાથે પોંડિચેરી, પુના અને દિલ્હી વચ્ચે આવન જાવન કરે છે. ફરીવાર શ્રી ફ્રાન્સવાજીને મારા વંદન. ભારત મંથન જેવા વિશિષ્ટ અને વિકટ કાર્યક્રમ માટે અલ્કેશભાઈ, શિરીષભાઈ, સમગ્ર ભારત મંથન ટીમ અને અહીં ઉપસ્થિત સૌ આપ સૌને ખૂબ ખૂબ ધન્યવાદ. સ્વાભાવિક રીતે આશ્ચર્ય થાય કે મેં આ કાર્યક્રમને વિકટ કીધો. એટલે એકચ્યુઅલી ગયા વખતે આઈએમએમાં જ્યારે આ કાર્યક્રમનું આયોજન થયું હતું, ભારત મંથન, હા એએમએમાં, એ સમયે મારી ડાબી બાજુથી 9મી રો ઉપર હું બેઠો હતો, ખૂણા ઉપર, અને મને એવું લાગતું હતું જ્યારે આવ્યો ત્યારે કે ભાઈ આ તો બહુ સરળ છે અને બધા લોકોને આમંત્રણ આપી દીધું અને કાર્યક્રમમાં બધા આવી ગયા, બેસી ગયા, વક્તાઓ આવી ગયા અને કાર્યક્રમ શરૂ થઈ ગયો. પણ ખરેખર એટલું અઘરું સહેલું નથી. એ જ્યારે મારા મિત્ર, હમણાં લગભગ 2 મહિના પહેલા જ મારા મિત્ર છે સંઘના ઋષિરાજભાઈ ઉપાધ્યાય અને સંકેતભાઈ રઘુવંશી, એમણે મને સંઘના જ એક પ્રકલ્પ ભારતીય શિક્ષણ મંડળના પ્રચાર પ્રમુખ તરીકેની જવાબદારી સોંપી. ત્યારબાદ મને ખૂબ જ સારી રીતે સમજાઈ ગયું કે આ કાર્યક્રમ આ પ્રકારના સાચી દિશામાં જે જઈ રહ્યા હોય એવા કાર્યક્રમનું આયોજન કરવું પણ એટલું સરળ નથી. અને આજે મારું અહીંયા આવવું પણ એટલું બધું મુશ્કેલ થઈ ગયું હતું. એ હું ને અલ્કેશભાઈ જાણીએ છીએ ખાલી, અને પહોંચી ગયો એ માટે ભગવાનનો આભાર માનું છું. આવું જ કંઈક ભારતના ઇતિહાસ સાથે પણ છે કે એમાં જરાય અતિશયોક્તિ નહીં ગણાય કે ભારતે જેટલું ભોગવ્યું છે એટલું ભાગ્યે જ બીજા કોઈ દેશના ભાગે ભોગવવાનું આવ્યું છે. હજારો વર્ષો સુધી આ દેશને મુસ્લિમ આક્રમણકારીઓ અને બ્રિટિશરોએ રગદોળે રાખ્યો. આ બંને અહીં આવીને ભારતના ધર્મ, પ્રાચીન ધરોહરો, અર્થવ્યવસ્થા, ઇતિહાસ, સંસ્કૃતિનો દાટ પડમાં પાછું વાળીને જોયું નહીં. લોકોને શારીરિક અને માનસિક રીતે ગુલામ બનાવી દીધા. મુસ્લિમ રાજાઓ અને બ્રિટિશ શાસકો બંને ભારતની પૌરાણિક સંપદાની લૂંટ મચાવી દેશને ચીથડે હાલ કરી નાખ્યો. આપણે સૌ જાણીએ છીએ આ બધો ઇતિહાસ. નાલંદા અને તક્ષશિલા જેવા ભારતના વિદ્યા મંદિરોનો પણ મુસ્લિમ શાસકોએ ભોગ લીધો. આ બધા અત્યાચારો પર ઇરફાન હબીબ, રોમિલા થાપર વગેરે જેવા ઇતિહાસ વિકારો કહું છું, ઢાંક પીછોડો કરતા આવ્યા છે. ઇતિહાસકારો નહીં કહો આ લોકોને જાણી જોઈને, કારણ કે ઇતિહાસકાર એને કહેવાય જે છે ઇતિહાસ મૂકે આપણી સામે. આ લોકો ઇતિહાસ વિકારો છે. વિચિત્ર માનસિકતા ધરાવતા આ ઇતિહાસ વિકારોએ એવું સાબિત કરી બતાવ્યું કે અંદરો અંદર સતત લડતા રહેતા ભારતીય રજવાડાઓને આ શાસકોએ એક કર્યા અને આ રીતે એમણે એક મહાન રાષ્ટ્રનું નિર્માણ કર્યું, જે ખરેખર એક તદ્દન ખોટી માહિતી છે આપણી સમક્ષ. આ શાસકોએ આપણા બૌદ્ધિક સંસાધનોને પણ બાકી નથી રાખ્યા. એમણે આપણી પોતાની શોધ એવી ભારતીય અંક પ્રણાલીને અરેબિક ગણાવી. ભારતીય ગણિત શાસ્ત્રી આર્યભટ્ટે આપેલા શૂન્યને પણ ન છોડ્યો. ભારત સાથે વર્ષોથી વેપાર કરતા આરબોએ આ બધી શોધ પોતાની હોવાનો દાવો કર્યો. વાસ્તવમાં દુનિયા આખીને જ્ઞાન પીરસવામાં ભારતનો ફાળો બહુ મોટો રહ્યો છે અને એ આપણે સૌ જાણીએ જ છીએ. એનું ઉદાહરણ જોઈએ તો સંખ્યાબંધ સંસ્કૃત ગ્રંથો અહીંથી પર્શિયા મોકલાયા અને ત્યાં એ ગ્રંથોને ફારસી ભાષામાં અનુવાદ થયો. આપણે સૌ લૂંટ શબ્દથી પરિચિત છીએ. લૂંટ શબ્દ હિન્દી ભાષાનો છે. અંગ્રેજોએ એ શબ્દ પણ તફડાવી લીધો અને ઓક્સફર્ડ ડિક્શનરીમાં સામેલ કરી દીધું. હજુ આવું ઘણું બધું છે, એના પર એક અલગથી ચર્ચા થઈ શકે. પવિત્ર ગંગા નદી જેટલી જૂની છે એ પ્રાચીન સમય સુધી જઈને ભૂતકાળને ખોદી અને જે અવળું થઈ ગયું છે, ખરેખર તો અવળું કરી નાખવામાં આવ્યું છે. એને સવળું કરવું કદાચ નિરર્થક લાગે, પણ મને એવું નથી લાગતું કે આપણે સતત એક ખોટા વિશ્વમાં જીવતા રહેવું જોઈએ. અત્યાર સુધી જે થયું એ થયું, પણ હવે વિકૃત લોકોએ જે જાણી જોઈને તોડી મરોડીને આપણો ઇતિહાસ રજૂ કર્યો છે, એ જાણવા છતાં ચૂપ બેસીને સાંભળ્યા રાખવું એ યોગ્ય નથી. જે થઈ રહ્યું છે એનો સ્વીકાર કરતા રહેવું એ બહુ મોટી ભૂલ ગણાશે. ભૂતકાળમાં જે બની ગયું એનું પુનરાવર્તન હવે આપણે સહન ન કરી શકીએ. હવે એ સમય બરાબર પાકી ગયો છે કે જ્યારે આપણે આપણો અવાજ ઊંચો કરવાનો છે અને આપણા ઇતિહાસનું પુનર્લેખન કરવાનું છે. આજ સુધી આપણે જે ભણ્યા કે આપણા બાળકો જે ભણી રહ્યા છે એ ખોટા ઇતિહાસને દૂર કરી પુનર્લિખિત વાસ્તવિક ભારતીય ઇતિહાસ આપણા બાળકો સમક્ષ મૂકવાનો છે. જોકે પરિસ્થિતિ હવે બદલાઈ રહી છે. આજે પુનરુત્થાનવાદી નવું ભારત સનાતન ધર્મ અને એના મૂલ્યો પ્રત્યે ફરીથી જાગૃત થઈ રહ્યું છે. અચાનક જ બધા ઇન્ડિયન્સ ભારતીયો બની રહ્યા હોય અને પોતાની ઓળખ નહેરુના ભારતે ખોજ વાળા ભારતમાં નહીં પણ તદ્દન નવા ભારતમાં ખોજી રહ્યા હોય એવું લાગી રહ્યું છે. અહીં એક સ્પષ્ટતા કરી દેવા માંગુ છું. નહેરુજીની વાત આવી એટલે કે નહેરુ અને મારી અટક લહેરુ. એટલે ઘણા લોકો મને પૂછે કે નહેરુ ને લહેરુ તમે બંને ભાઈઓ એમ. એટલે એમને મેં ઘણી વાર કીધું છે, આ પહેલા સોશિયલ મીડિયા પ્લેટફોર્મ ઉપર ઘણા લખે નહેરુ લખતા સીધા બીવે, એટલે એ લોકો એવું લખે કે લહેરુ. એટલે એને કહું કે ભાઈ મારું નામ ન બગાડો, અમારે સ્નાન સૂક્તકનો સંબંધ નથી અને આ 7 પેઢી સુધી નહીં પણ 700 પેઢી સુધી અમારે નહેરુ ને લહેરુ ને કંઈ એકબીજા સાથે કંઈ કનેક્શન નથી. એટલે પોઈન્ટ પર આવીએ. આજે જે પુસ્તકો માટે આપણે સૌ ભેગા થયા છીએ એમાંનું એક ફ્રાન્સવા ગોતિયેજીનું પુસ્તક એન એન્ટાયરલી ન્યૂ હિસ્ટ્રી ઓફ ઇન્ડિયા, એટલે ભારતના સાચા ઇતિહાસ તરફનો એક નવો વળાંક. છેલ્લા 7 દાયકાઓથી વિકૃત રીતે રજૂ થઈ રહેલા ભારતના ઇતિહાસને બૌદ્ધિક આતંકવાદીઓએ બનાવેલા ખોટા ઇતિહાસ રૂપી કરોડિયાના ઝાડામાંથી મુક્ત કરવાના પ્રયત્નોમાં આ પુસ્તકનું નામ મૂકી શકાય. સમગ્ર પુસ્તકમાં ફ્રાન્સવા સરે ઘણી માન્યતાઓનું ખંડન કર્યું છે. ઉદાહરણ તરીકે જોઈએ તો આપણે સૌ જે સમ્રાટ અશોકને ભારતનો મહાન શૂરવીર રાજા ગણીએ છીએ, આપણને આંચકો લાગે એવી વાત એટલે ધ ગ્રેટ સમ્રાટ અશોક, ગ્રેટ સમ્રાટ અશોક તરીકે ઓળખાતા રાજાને આ પુસ્તકમાં ફ્રાન્સવાએ ચંડ અશોક કહ્યો છે. રાજગાદી પર બેસતા પહેલા એણે પોતાના 99 ઓરમાન ભાઈઓની હત્યા કરી નાખી હતી. અને આ બધી ફ્રાન્સવાએ ઉપજાવી કાઢેલી વાતો નથી, પણ અશોક જે સંપ્રદાયના ફેલાવવા માટે જાણીતો છે એ બૌદ્ધ ધર્મના ગ્રંથોને આધાર રાખીને જ આ લખવામાં આવ્યું છે. આપણે ઇતિહાસમાં વાંચ્યું છે કે કલિંગના યુદ્ધ બાદ લોહી લોહાણ કપાયેલી લાશોના ઢગલા અને નિરાધાર મહિલાઓ અને બાળકોને જોઈને અશોકને પસ્તાવો થાય છે અને એ બૌદ્ધ ધર્મ અંગીકાર કરી લે છે. પણ વાસ્તવિકતા એનાથી કંઈક જુદી જ છે. બૌદ્ધ શિલાલેખો મુજબ કલિંગના યુદ્ધના અંદાજે 2 વર્ષ અગાઉ અશોકે બૌદ્ધ ધર્મ અંગીકાર કરી લીધો હતો. કોઈ પણ શિલાલેખમાં અશોકને પસ્તાવો થયો હોય એ સંદર્ભના પુરાવા મળ્યા નથી. શાંતિપ્રિય બૌદ્ધ લોકોના મતે અશોક એક નિર્દય અને ખંધો વ્યક્તિ હતો, જેણે શિલાલેખોનો પ્રોપોગેન્ડા ટૂલ તરીકે પોતાની નિર્દયતા છુપાવવા માટે ઉપયોગ કર્યો છે. પાલી લિપિમાં લખાયેલ અશોક બંડારા નામના એક ગ્રંથ મુજબ એણે બંગાળના આજીવિક સંપ્રદાયના 18,000 લોકોની એક જ દિવસમાં હત્યા કરવાનો હુકમ કર્યો હતો. આજે પણ અશોકના આ દુષ્કૃત્યોને છાવરતા હોય એવા ઘણા ઇતિહાસકારો છે. એમના મતે અશોકે કરેલા અત્યાચારો માત્ર કપોળ કલ્પિત વાતો જ છે. ફ્રાન્સવા સરના મતે અકબર અને ઔરંગઝેબ જેવા મોગલ બાદશાહો પણ અતિશય નિર્દય અને ઘમંડી શાસકો હતા. રાજસ્થાનના ચિત્તોડના યુદ્ધમાં અકબરે હજારો લોકોની હત્યા કરી હતી. પુસ્તકમાં એ પણ ટાંક્યું છે કે બીજા મોગલ શાસકોની તુલનાએ અકબર હિન્દુઓ પ્રત્યે વધુ સહિષ્ણુ હતો. એણે હિન્દુ અને મુસ્લિમ સંપ્રદાયને સાથે લાવી અને દીને હિલાહી નામનો એક નવો સંપ્રદાયને સ્થાન આપવાનો પ્રયત્ન પણ કર્યો હતો. જોકે એની એ પહેલ તદ્દન નિષ્ફળ રહી હતી. બીજા મોગલોની માફક ઔરંગઝેબ સૌથી વધુ કટ્ટરપંથી હતો. એણે અનેક હિન્દુ મંદિરો તોડી પાડ્યા અને હિન્દુઓને છરીની અણીએ રાખીને ઇસ્લામ ધર્મ અંગીકાર કરવાની ફરજ પાડી હતી. હિન્દુઓ અને બિન મુસ્લિમો ઉપર જઝિયા નામનો કુખ્યાત ટેક્સ લાગુ પાડ્યો હતો અને તેઓ સામે હાથી કે ઘોડાની સવારી કરવા પર પ્રતિબંધ મૂક્યો હતો. જો કોઈ એનો વિરોધ કરે તો એને હાથી નીચે કચડી નાખવાનો આદેશ હતો. ઔરંગઝેબને સૌથી મોટો દુશ્મન જો કોઈ ગણતો હોય ઔરંગઝેબ તો એ હતો શીખ સંપ્રદાય. એણે શીખોના અનેક ગુરુદ્વારાઓ તોડી પાડ્યા અને ગુરુ તેગ બહાદુર સિંહનો ક્રૂરતાપૂર્વક શિરચ્છેદ કર્યો હતો. પુસ્તકમાં એ પણ ઉલ્લેખ છે કે છત્રપતિ શિવાજી મહારાજ અને એમની ગોરીલા યુદ્ધ પદ્ધતિથી ઔરંગઝેબ સૌથી વધુ ભયભીત હતો. ખોટી રીતે પ્રદર્શિત ઇતિહાસને સાચી દિશા મળે અને ડાબેરી એજન્ડામાંથી મુક્તિ મળી રહે એ માટે આવા પુસ્તકની નવા ભારતને જરૂર હતી જ. જોકે ભારતના ઇતિહાસને નવેસરથી લખવાનો પ્રયાસ હિમાલય જેટલો ઊંચો અને વિકટ છે, પણ પુસ્તક વાંચ્યા બાદ મને એવું લાગે છે કે 32 સંક્ષિપ્ત પ્રકરણો અને 210 કરતા વધુ પૃષ્ઠો સાથેના આ પુસ્તકમાં ફ્રાન્સવા સરે ખૂબ જ નોંધપાત્ર કામ કર્યું છે. મને લાગે છે કે કદાચ મેં થોડો વધારે સમય લઈ લીધો છે, તો હવે પુસ્તક વિશે લેખક પોતે જ બોલે વધુ આવકાર્ય અને યોગ્ય રહેશે. If I am 100% Indian, then Francois sir is 200% Indian. I call upon Francois sir to share his views, thoughts on this book, and also enlighten us about FA City Museum of Pune. It is also known as Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Museum. Welcome, Francois.
Thank you, Kuldeep. I'm grateful for your speech. Kuldeep is a rare combination of a devoted art of living and also a proud Hindu. Now, when I came to India as a young man, I had the same ignorance and the same prejudices and the same cliches that most Westerners have, Western journalists or Western Indologists or Western writers that they have. But I had the immense privilege to first arrived in Pondicherry and to meet the mother of Pondicherry, who was a French lady. She was the companion of Sri Aurobindo, and she was a great yogini also. And when she looked in my eyes, I was 19 years old only. I just turned 19. My life went upside down. When a guru looks at you and there is a divine spark that wakes up in you. So I started reading Sri Aurobindo. And as you know, Sri Aurobindo is a great avatar. He's a great nationalist also. Unfortunately, much of Sri Aurobindo's political writings have been swept under the carpet, both at the school level, philosophy level, but even in Pondicherry today. But Sri Aurobindo was a great nationalist, and he didn't mince his words. He was a great poet, he was a great philosopher, he was, of course, an immense yogi. So when I started doing journalism, I had already in my mind and in my heart Sri Aurobindo's words. He's written many books, and there's one book particularly called The Foundations of Indian Culture. This book was written more than 100 years ago when a British journalist called Mr. Archer said there was nothing much of value in Indian philosophy, Indian culture, Indian architecture, Indian painting. So Sri Aurobindo wrote a big book that is still today should be the Bible of every proud Indian. Today I'm going to use the word proud because the word proud is very important. I found that I'm proud to be in India. I'm proud to defend India. I'm proud to be married to an Indian. But I find that many Indians lack pride. Oh, pride in my culture. As a Frenchman, I was brought up in the being proud of being a Frenchman. My great poets, my great warriors, Napoleon, the great writers. And so even today, France remain proud to be French, but it is not so in India. So when I started, when I became a political journalist, I had Sri Aurobindo's words in my heart. And then, of course, I covered Kashmir, the Valley of Kashmir, because people are very ignorant about Kashmir. Unfortunately, in the West, they mix everything up. Now, there's the Valley of Kashmir, where there were 1 million Hindus in 1900, and today there may be 20 left. And then there is the Ladakh, which is predominantly Buddhist. And then there is Jammu, which has got a majority of Hindus. Now, when Western journalists reported about the removal of Article 370 by Mr. Modi, they didn't mention that. They just mixed up everything, and they said this is an attempt to ostracize the Muslim community, but it's a very ignorant fact. So when I came to Kashmir and I covered Kashmir, I was a witness to the ethnic cleansing of the Hindus of Kashmir who were still there in the valley. There were maybe 350,000 Hindus were chased out of the valley of Kashmir. And I was there and I saw it and just opened my eyes that a religion can say, unless you convert to my religion, you die or you flee and you become refugees in your own country. So this was something that shook me a lot, that I saw the innocent Hindus of Kashmir who had done no harm. They had mixed with their Muslim brothers and sisters for centuries. They went to their festivals, they honored their religion, so they had no harm. And so they lost in a few weeks, they lost everything, their land, their property, their house. Even today, they haven't been able to go back to the Valley of Kashmir. So this really shook me. And I started studying Indian history. I can't say I'm a professor of Indian history, but because of what I saw in Kashmir, I started studying Indian history, and I realized that Indian history was not written as it happened. That people were monsters like Aurangzeb, because Aurangzeb was not only a monster to Hindus, but he was a monster to his own family. He imprisoned his father, Shah Jahan, and had him slowly poisoned. He beheaded his brother, Dahashuko, who was an enlightened Sufi and that believed that Islam had an origin in the Upanishads. He imprisoned his sons. So he was a monster. So people like Aurangzeb are praised to heaven, or Tipu Sultan for that matter. And great heroes and heroines like Shivaji Maharaj or Maharana Pratap, who are on par with Napoleon because they fought, Maharana Pratap fought against Akbar. who of course is the better of all the Mughal emperors, but still killed 30,000 Hindus in Chittor. And of course, Shivaji Maharaj fought against Aurangzeb, the most powerful of all Mughal emperors, who had the most powerful army, and he won. Shivaji Maharaj actually won. When Shivaji Maharaj was born, the Mughal Empire was at its peak. When Shivaji Maharaj died at the young age of 52, it had started to decline. And indeed, Aurangzeb wrote in his will, Aurangzeb wrote by hand. He lived very old. He lived till he was 80 years old, and he was a very meticulous emperor. Every time he passed an order for raising a temple, he raised most of the major Hindu temples in India, in Benares or the Krishna Mathura temple. He would had it written down in Farsi, and then he put the emperor seal himself. So Aurangzeb is very well documented. When I started studying Indian history, of course, I looked at Aurangzeb because Aurangzeb is very central in Indian history. He's not only is praised, but it is said that under him it was a golden age for India, that arts and literature and everything flourished, which is absolutely untrue. Aurangzeb banned music in his court because the Sunni considered that music is frivolous, it should be banned. So he banned music in his court, and he was, of course, extremely cruel to Hindus. He imposed the jizya tax. He raised, thousands and thousands of temples. He trampled Hindus with his elephants in Delhi. There are records about this. When they protested against jizya tax, he forbade them to ride horses or elephants or palanquins. So he humiliated, and killed many Hindus. So, and it is there in his record. I mean, when I started studying Aurangzeb, I went to his archive because most of his orders are preserved in India, either in the Bikaner archives in Rajasthan or in Hyderabad, in a museum dedicated to Aurangzeb. So everything is there. So I had some professor of Indian history, and we researched and we found Aurangzeb orders. Then the idea came to me that I should do an exhibition on Aurangzeb. Because, as I said, he's so central and so praised in Indian history that the truth should be revealed about him. Even today, we see that Westerners like Audrey Truchke in the United States, still go on about praising Aurangzeb and being a Hindu. So we made an exhibition. I had a professor of Indian history in Rajasthan, who was the retired head of the Department of History, University of Rajasthan. His name is Dr. Bhatnagar, and he helped me to research Aurangzeb. And then we hired a team of painters to do in the ancient miniature style paintings corresponding to Aurangzeb firmans, Aurangzeb orders. So, for instance, the raising of the Krishna Mathura temple, there is an order. So we put this order, we had it scanned and translated from the Farsi to English and Hindi. We put this order, and next to it, there was a painting done in the ancient miniature style of the temple being raised, the Krishna temple being raised. Then there was another order of Aurangzeb that the murtis, the idols of the Krishna Mathura temple, should be buried under the steps of the mosque that was built upon the raised temple, so that generations of Muslims would trample upon the Hindu murtis. Oh, so we did another painting that showed that. And indeed, there are many mosques in India. Most of the mosques in India are built upon raised either Hindu temples or Jain temples or Buddhist temples. Of course, the Jain and Buddhists haven't complained so much about it, but we know, for instance, that the Ayodhya mosque, of which I was a witness also when it was raised by Hindu Sevaks, is built upon not only ancient Hindu temples but also Buddhist and Jain temples. The same is true in Benares. The same is true, for instance, in the Qutub Minar Delhi complex in Delhi, where you can still see some Hindu statues and columns. So we did that exhibition on Aurangzeb. And I opened it in Delhi in Habitat Center, which is a very prestigious central exhibition hall in Delhi. Sri Ravi Shankar, who's been always very supporting of my work, and Mr. L.K. Advani inaugurated it. And then we took it around in India. I'm not going to tell the whole story because we had some problems with that exhibition. Indians objected, they, why do you want to wake up the past, let it lie. And then, of course, some Muslim also objected, and they did a demonstration, so the exhibition was closed in Chennai. So I did few exhibitions, like on Shivaji Maharaj, who was a great, great warrior. I mean, Shivaji Maharaj with 300, 400 men, and only his courage, extraordinary courage, his wit, fought against the most powerful army in the world. And as I said, when he died, you can say that because of Shivaji Maharaj, Indian culture and ethos is better protected from Bombay to Kanyakumari, because this is where Shivaji Maharaj fought. And today, I keep traveling from Delhi to Pondicherry, and every time I come to the south, I feel that it is softer, there is less harsh, culture are more protected, women are more protected. So did a few exhibitions. Maharana Pratap, of course, great, great man, Maharana Pratap. People are ignorant, although they think that Maharata fought, the Rajputs fought the Mughals, but actually Maharana Pratap is the only Rajput who fought the Mughals. All the other Rajputs either gave money, tribute, or gave their daughter in marriage to Akbar, for instance. So Akbar wanted absolutely to befriend Maharana Pratap, and Maharana Pratap considered rightly that Akbar was a foreigner. In those days, the Mughals were foreigners. They were coming from foreign countries, Uzbekistan, Iran, Turkey. They were foreigners. So today, Indians consider part of it in culture, but Maharana Pratap rightly said to Akbar, you're a foreign, you're an invader. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to give you my daughter in marriage. I'm going to fight you. So indeed, Maharana Pratap fought Akbar in Nadirgati and held his ground, and it was a great defeat for Akbar. And Maharana Pratap never gave up his fight. He remained, he never lived in the palace. He was an extraordinarily courageous man. He was a very just monarch. He was a secular man. This thing about Hindus being non-secular is absolutely rubbish. Both Shivaji Maharaj and Maharana Pratap never harmed the daughters or the wives of their enemies. There are stories of Shivaji Maharaj scolding his son because he had taken prisoners some Muslim ladies, royal ladies and princesses. And Shivaji Maharaj said, no, you please stand them back. We don't touch the ladies. So they were very secular people. They were no doubt devoted Hindus, but they were secular in the true sense. And yet, the sad thing, I come back to the word proud that I use when I talk about Kuldeep. They are not in Indian history books. Aurangzeb is there, Tipu Sultan is there, Akbar is there, Ashoka is there for the wrong reason because, Nehru saw that, we should prop up Ashoka because he was a Buddhist. He converted to Buddhism. And because that he saw the horrors of the war in the Kalinga battle. But actually, if you read properly on the many records, Ashoka converted to Buddhism before the Kalinga battle, and that was done in a political manner because at that time the Jains and Buddhists, there was a competition between them, and there were sometimes the Jains were with the emperor, sometimes the Buddhists. So to counterbalance the influence of the Jains, Ashoka became a Buddhist, and actually he was a very cruel man. He was called Chand Ashoka the Cruel, because he was extremely cruel. There was a Jain sect called the Avikas, and he had them burnt in their houses alive. He was an extremely cruel man. So again, Indian history not told as it happened. So I did these exhibitions, but I realized that doing exhibition is good. I wrote books, of course. He mentioned my book, Kuldeep, and this is my latest book, An Entirely New History of India. And in this book, I think for the first time, I don't think any other historian, and as I said, I'm not really an historian, have corrected Indian history as it happened in that book. From all the controversy that Indians didn't have horses, Indians didn't master iron, to Ashoka, to Akbar, to Aurangzeb, to the independence movement, which all Indian history books give to Mahatma Gandhi. But it's absolutely untrue. So the revolt, against the British started very early. In the early 20th century with Aurobindo, with Tilak. So in this book, up to Mr. Modi, up to Article 270, I have rewritten Indian history like never before, right? But as a journalist, I have written many articles. I have thousands and thousands of articles, trying to rewrite Indian history, trying to defend, Hindus, trying to show all the prejudices and the ignorance that is there in the West and in India about Indian history. But articles and books have a limited life. That is the problem with articles. Even with internet today, some of my articles are still floating around, but they have a limited life. Books also have a limited life. I mean, unless you are the Bible or Harry Potter, and I don't know how long Harry Potter is going to last. Your books for 2, 3, 4 years they're there, and then they fade away because many more books come. So then, when I had done so many exhibitions, written so many books, I have written maybe 29 books in French and English on India. Since Sri Ravi Shankar told me, oh, you have so many exhibitions, I have a piece of land in Pune near the airport. So let me give you that piece of land. So on that piece of land, which was at that time, that was nearly 10 years ago, it was very far from Pune, it was very barren, there was no water, it was only rocks. Some people had tried to make an ashram, a Jain ashram, but because of lack of water, they had given it up. So upon that land, I started, digging water, planting trees. And then the first thing I did is a temple dedicated to Mother India. As I said, I met the mother of Pondicherry. I'm a great believer in the Shakti. Sri Aurobindo said, without her, I'm unmanifest. Without that divine energy, that Shakti in you, which is feminine, I cannot manifest myself. I cannot manifest my greatness. So I'm a great believer because I felt the Shakti of India many times. I came to India driving from Paris. There was a caravan of 5 cars, and I was very young. I just turned 19, and I was told that the caravan of 5 cars going to Pondicherry, and I wanted to see the world. I thought, let me look at the world and have experience, and become a man, become a knowledgeable man. So I drove with this caravan to Delhi, crossing many countries. I wrote a book about it in France, but it's not yet in English. From France to Germany, Austria, Yugoslavia, Greece, Turkey. Turkey is Istanbul is a gate of the East. It's a very beautiful city. And then from Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan is also a very beautiful country. Very noble people, beautiful sunsets. And then from Pakistan and from Lahore to Delhi, it's a night's drive. So we drove to Delhi. My first night I spent in India, in the Sri Aurobindo ashram in Delhi. Now today it's become a huge school. But in those days it was a small ashram, still in the fields, still in the countryside. And I had my first experience of the Shakti. I opened the book of Sri Aurobindo. I was very ignorant about India, as I said, very ignorant about spirituality. But I opened that book, few lines, and I felt that presence. There's a presence on the soil of India. There's an emanation. There's a Shakti. You can feel it in different places. I felt it in Pune again. I felt it in Almora very strongly. Two places I felt that the body of India, the physical body, is not just earth. There is a presence, maybe because millions of avatars, of gurus, of sadhus have meditated upon this land. I felt it in Kashmir also, in Srinagar of all places, when there was so much strife and one could hear, grenades and gunfire in the night. I spent a lot of time there. There was only one hotel open. It was called the Adud Hotel on the bank of the Jhelum River. And one night I just walked and I felt it. I felt that, even Kashmir holds that Shakti. And this is why it's important that India preserve Kashmir. So then in that museum, I started by doing a small temple dedicated to Mother India and Shivaji Maharaj, because of course Pune is the land of Shivaji Maharaj. It's from there from there he conducted all his actions, and he was crowned emperor there. So we have a small temple at the entrance of the museum. The first thing I did, Shivaji Maharaj offering, his words to Mother India. It's a beautiful statue. Many people are coming to the temple today because, temples are so important in India, and a museum is a temple of knowledge. In America, they have this culture that, in temples there is knowledge, and that knowledge is to be, worshipped, to be seen with a sense of the sacred. So this is why I did that museum, the temple, so people enter there. And then it's a donation museum. My wife and I are married to an Indian. Her name is Namrita. I'm married 30 years with her, and I'm grateful to her and to Mother India. So we get donations. We continue. I am continue as a journalist and a writer. She's a textile designer. So in our spare time, we do seva for that museum. Now next week we'll go to the museum again in Pune to continue the work and install new exhibitions. We have many new exhibitions that we're making now. We're doing in Vijayanagar, which is the last great Hindu empire, which was based on Dharma, on goodness, and which was wiped out in the most cruel and most bloody manner by Muslims, by the Sultans of Delhi and Bijapur. And then we have exhibition on women warriors, like Rani Kituche Nama in Karnataka, not so well known, but a great queen. Hyderabad Holka, another great, extraordinary queen. Tarabai, who fought the model herself, the daughter-in-law of Shivaji Maharaj. Jijabai, the mother of Shivaji Maharaj, who had a great, great influence on her life. So a series of exhibition on Indian women to show how great Indian women are, because again, that prejudice in Indian women are burned, they're raped, they are exploited, they are married at a young age. So to break that mold, which is so strong still in the West, I've done the exhibition. So as we get donations, I make a building, a small building. I put one exhibition. We have now 17 pavilions and about 22 exhibitions on Maharajah Pratap, Shivaji Maharaj, on Tipu Sultan to show him as he really was. Of course, on the web, we have an exhibition also on the Hindu Holocaust. I think the greatest genocide ever is that of the Hindus from the Hindu Kush, where 500,000 Hindus taken as slaves by Gauri died of cold to Mumbai 2011. It has been calculated that at least 100 million Hindus died of that genocide, mostly at the hands of Muslim invaders. So we have exhibition on the Hindu, on Sikhism, on the Goa Inquisition, of course. So many exhibitions are there. It's a free museum. Entrance is free. We were very happy that in 2019, nearly 10,000 people visited the museum just by word of mouth without publicity. Many of them school children. Now, I want to come back to education in India, because what Mr. Nehru did in 1947 is that he borrowed everything from the British. Whatever the British left, education system, the judicial system, you can see today how corrupt the judicial system is, that anybody can do a court case in India. It takes 10 to 20 years for any court case to be judged. People go to jail for nothing. So he took everything. And the education system today is what the British left. Now Indian children learn about modern mathematics and Shakespeare and a little bit of Indian history, but as I said, mostly about Aurangzeb and Tipu Sultan, and not about their own heroes of the world. Sri Aurobindo, probably the greatest philosopher of the 20th century, is not taught in India. Is not taught even in philosophical curriculums in India. Kalidasa, one of the greatest poets ever, on par with Shakespeare, on par with Homer, is not taught in India. And yet, translated from the Sanskrit, he's an extraordinary poet. He's a world-class poet. But he's not taught in India. Shivaji Maharaj gets 3-4 lines, and sometimes they say that he was just a plunderer Maharana Pratap is unknown outside the north of India, Rajasthan, and maybe a few states in the north. Rani Ki Chenama is not known, Tarabai is not taught. So what happened is that Indian children are taught a Western-oriented education, and as a result, they have no root, they have no pride. They have no pride. I mean, there are few exceptions, of course, but there is no pride in them. So they're just good for export. The greatest brain in the world is that of the Hindus, because Hindus are often looked down on their own culture. They claim to be Hindus, and yet the knowledge that the world has lost, that was there in Egypt, in Greece, in Mesopotamia, that who am I, what happens when I die, what is consciousness, what is dharma, what is karma, any action I do today has a repercussion tomorrow in another life, what is an avatar, how God manifests himself or herself at different times using different names, different scriptures. Today, only the Hindus hold it. If the Hindu goes, that knowledge goes from the world. So I've always said in my books and my articles and even that museum that it is a spirituality that props up Hinduism that is important. That is so important. And when I came to India, it touched me immensely that I found answers that I had been looking for when I was a young guy. That what is death? What is life? What is the point of living this life? How can I lead a better life? In India, there's still you can do pranama. I mean, we are grateful to Sri Ravi Shankar because he taught us pranayama, and as a journalist, it helped me to have more energy, a more balanced mind. And my wife too, and we became teachers of the technique. Actually, we are teachers of pranayama, my wife and myself. Meditation, how to calm the mind. Ayurveda, the most ancient medical system still in practice in the world today. Most ancient medical system that knew that many illnesses have a psychosomatic origin. That did surgery, plastic surgery, thousands of years before the Western doctor did. So I'm proud to defend that culture, but Hindus are not proud because they're taught an education that is westernized. When I go to the United States, universities in the US are full of Hindu students. Recently, 2 years ago, maybe I went, or 2 years ago, I went to Atlanta, a big city, a huge university, and there are 3,000 Indian students in that university, most of them Hindus. And I gave a lecture on the need to rewrite the Indian history. You know how many came out of 3,000 Indian students? 9. So, I mean, I don't do it I do it free. I do it because I believe in that culture. But it's a uphill battle because Hindus themselves are not conscious of the greatness of the history. So I think it's important that we chant that. I've done that museum because I feel that it'll stay behind me, that my books may fade, but this museum, which has been a very difficult task because people do not give to museum. India doesn't have a museum culture. There are some government museums which are very dusty, very politically correct. I remember when I came to Pune, I was looking for a Shivaji Maharaj museum because I thought, like in Paris, we have a huge museum dedicated to Napoleon. But there isn't in Pune. There isn't a museum solely dedicated to Shivaji Maharaj, to his glory, to his feats, to his wars. There isn't, because again, British colonialism, and of course, political parties have divided Maharashtrians, between the Brahmins who are the holders of the knowledge and some of the Dalits or the converted Buddhists who are still followers of Shivaji Maharaj but do not want to have anything to do with the Vedas or Mother India. Or indeed, when I started the museum and the temple, I got threats from these people who are Dalits, Hindus, followers of Shivaji Maharaj, followers of Ambedkar, who was a great man, by the way. And they said, no, in that museum, you don't put anything about the Vedas, Mother India, the Brahmin, So, but I'm a Frenchman, so I continued. So I need support for that museum. As I said, it's been a very uphill task. It's difficult to raise money for that museum because, as I said, there is no museum culture in the museum, and people are a little scared. I mean, Indian history is a very touchy subject. I do something on Goa Inquisition, the Christians get offended. I do something on Hindu Holocaust, the Muslims get offended. Indeed, when the Dalai Lama came to the museum 5 years ago, and I'm a great fan of the Dalai Lama, and the Tibetans have also suffered a great genocide at the hand of the Chinese. We're also enemies of India. It's a pity that the Indian government doesn't recognize the Dalai Lama as the legal, spiritual leader and political leader of Tibet, which the Chinese have annexed and which used to be a buffer between India and China, which is gone today. So the Chinese have a huge strategic advantage. So when the Dalai Lama came to the museum, he's a very well protected person, and all kind of security agencies came to the museum. And the first were from I think, the intelligence bureau, and they were Muslims. They were very offended by the Hindu Holocaust exhibition. Oh my God, we got problems with the police. The DGP told us that to remove it, otherwise we might be jailed. So Indian history is a very touchy subject. People are scared to give. We went to big corporations. Mr. Modi inaugurated the first phase of the museum, the Shivaji Maharaj exhibition, when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat. So he tried to help me, put me in touch with some big businessmen like the Kirloskars in Pune or the Ruyas in Bombay. But ultimately, these people who received me, because of course Mr. Modi is a very powerful man. In the end, they told me, no, we are more comfortable with health and education, we give money there, but the museum, done by a Frenchman is not something that we would like to do. So I need support for that museum. I think Kuldeep will give you the details on how to donate. We have tax exemption. We are recognized trust, registered trust with the government of India. We have FCRA. And your donation goes into educating Indians about their own greatness. And also the dark side of Indian history, which is the genocide, how much, Muslim invaders like Timur, who killed 100,000 Hindus in a day. It's a pity that one of your Bollywood stars named his son after Timur, because Timur was a monster. No? He killed 100,000 Hindus in one day. It is recorded. He was proud of it. Historians have recorded it. And in those days, we didn't have machine guns that you can kill easily people. They had to be killed with swords and spears. So it's a very bloody business, and it would have taken a long time, a lot of people to do that. So I try to educate Indians, and I need your support for this museum. As I said, we're doing many new exhibitions. Mostly we're doing painting, but also some artifacts. So please be in touch with Kuldeep and help me to bring that museum. It's a seva. It's my gift to India. I do it because I feel that it's important. So thank you. Namaste. Back to you, Kuldeep.
Hello. 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 હેલો, આવે છે અવાજ? હેલો. ફ્રાન્સવા સરે ખૂબ સરસ મજાની વાત કરી, પુસ્તક વિશે વાત કરી, એફએસીટી મ્યુઝિયમ વિશે વાત કરી. એમણે કહ્યું કે હિન્દુઓ સનાતન ધર્મમાં આસ્થા રાખનારા આપણા જેવા લોકો ખરેખર ખુલ્લે આમ આગળ વધતા અચકાય છે, અને આગળ વધતા નથી ખરેખર. જે રીતના બીજા દેશના થઈ રહ્યું છે એ રીતના આપણા શિવાજી મ્યુઝિયમ માટે ખરેખર એ ખૂબ મહેનત કરી રહ્યા છે અને એ રાત દિવસ એક કરી અને એમાં પોતાનો જીવ આત્મા રેડીને કામ કરી રહ્યા છે. તો એના માટે એમણે સપોર્ટની વાત કરી. એ સિવાય એવું વાત કરી કે ઔરંગઝેબ કેવી રીતે ભારતમાં એમનું આક્રમણકારી પગલાં ભરી અને એ સિવાય અશોકની વાત કરી. વધુ સમય ન લેતા આગળના સેશન માટે હું પ્રાર્થના કરીશ. અચ્છા, હા, કોઈને ક્વેશ્ચન આન્સર હોય, ફ્રાન્સવા સરની સાથે વાત કરવી હોય તો ક્વેશ્ચન આન્સર હોય તો ફ્રાન્સવા સર જે અવેલેબલ છે. જો કોઈને કંઈ પૂછવું હોય તો એમની સાથે વાત કરી શકે છે. હા, પ્લીઝ એમને માઇક પ્લીઝ. હા, આવી જાઉં.
Thank you, Mr. Gautier. I have a question. There was King Ashoka in Srinagar, in Kashmir, who actually established a capital called Srinagari. Was he the same as Ashoka of Kalinga? Because both are called Ashoka the Great. Sir, you are mute. Kindly unmute yourself.
I am aware that Kashmir was once upon a time the capital of Buddhism. It was a highlight of Buddhism in India. And I'm aware that Ashoka promoted it. We are not sure whether he actually went there himself. There is no historical evidence that Ashoka went there himself, but for sure Ashoka was a missionary. He tried to spread Buddhism all over India, and he may have sent Buddhist monks to Kashmir. And indeed, Kashmir before the Muslim invasion was both Hindu and Buddhist. But of course, the problem with Buddhism is that first, Buddhists are non-violent, so they do not resist the invasions like the Hindus did. And secondly, most of the buildings were in wood. Like the great Nalanda University was mostly made of wood. It was a Buddhist university for many centuries, and so when it was burnt by the Muslim invaders, nothing much remained of it. I am not a great fan of Ashoka, actually. I don't know, you probably perceived it already, but I think he's the wrong man to prop up as a hero for India. It was done for political reasons because Buddhism is politically correct. I mean, even today, the Pope recognizes Buddhism as an alternate religion to Christianity, but not Hinduism, which has survived much more than Buddhism today in the world, because there are 1.3 billion Hindus. I don't know how many Buddhists there are in the world, but not many are left in China, not because Mao Zedong destroyed them, and not many are left in Japan either because it was intensely westernized. So I would rather have heroes of India, like Maharana Pratap or Shivaji Maharaj, because they were great nationalists. Today, we need nationalists in India. We need people who are proud to be Indians. We need people who are going to portray Indian history as it happened, not being politically correct. And Ashoka, I'm sorry, is a politically correct emperor whose seal is there on the whose will is there on the flag of India. But actually, if you read Ashoka, you study Ashoka, he was a very cruel man. He was a very absolutely cruel man. He killed all his brothers except one who was blind. He was an extremely cruel man.
There might be two different Ashoka, one from Kashmir and one the Kalinga one. That's the
Yes.
song.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir. One more question.
Namaskar, sir. My privilege to have interactions with you. I'm Jagdish Anera. Appreciate your ventures in the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Museum in Pune. You refer to so many people, rather directly or indirectly. Uh, it must be on a personal perception also level. My question is because there is a person, great personality in Pune, who has enlivened the life of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj for himself, and he has also encouraged to do the same. It is Baba Saheb Purandare. May I know Baba Saheb Purandare? He is almost 99 years old today, but
Mm.
still he is living the life of means in the world of Shivaji Maharaj, and he encourages others also to do this thing. May I know whether you can share something about his role in the museum, or I'm not sure whether you have come across or not, but I would be happy if you can tell us about his role. And he has got an assistant now because he's 99. Parag Naik is there, who is also working in the same field. Thank you, sir.
Yes, I met Baba Sahib Purandare because, of course, he's the greatest expert on Shivaji Maharaj. But unfortunately, he's been under threat. As I said earlier, the NCP, the Congress Party of Maharashtra, has divided the followers of Shivaji Maharaj. Now, the Brahmins were targeted. And unfortunately, Baba Sahib Purandare and many of the great historians are Brahmins. So, for political reasons, for getting votes of the Dalit community elsewhere in India also, it is not only in Maharashtra, has been pitted against the higher caste of India by Indian politicians after British independence. I think Mr. Nehru was the forerunner of that, so that the Hindu vote is divided. Now, in Maharashtra, the problem of Mr. Purandare is that he's been under threat so long that he's not been able to put his knowledge, his infinite knowledge about Shivaji Maharaj into museums or buildings, or he's only be able to put it in books. So I'm inspired by him, but I'm a Frenchman, I'm outside caste, I'm a militant Frenchman. I'm not scared of threats. Indeed, for that museum, as I said, I've got and I'm still getting a lot of threats. And from, in the beginning, a lot from these Dalits and followers of Ambedkar, Buddhists also, who are targeting Purandare and other Brahmin scholars. So what I did in the museum, I did a small shrine. I put a statue of Buddha, a nice old ancient statue, stone statue of Buddha, and behind I put a photo of Ambedkar. From that day, the threat ceased. And also because these people, some of them came to see my museum, and they could see that I'm a real devotee of Shivaji Maharaj, that I believe, he was a vibhuti. Sri Aurobindo called him a vibhuti, that he was sent on the earth for a particular mission which he accomplished with the sacrifice of his life, because he, of course, died very early. So I worship Shivaji Maharaj, and I prop him up. So the threat ceased. But unfortunately, Mr. Baba Sahib is still under threat from these people. And this is why in Pune, you do not see anything great about Shivaji Maharaj except a few statues. Statues is, India is full of statues. It's a culture of statues, but statues are lifeless. They don't teach you anything. They just, politicians use them for their own. What you need is knowledge. Yeah? What you need is knowledge about Shivaji Maharaj, how he fought Aurangzeb, how he was a nationalist, how he was an extraordinary warrior. So this Mr. Purandare was able to put it in books, but not in stone and artifacts like I'm doing. However, I'm not. Of course, I'm humble. I'm not knowledgeable like him.
Good day, sir. This is Deepen Upadhyay. First of all, merci beaucoup in French. Thank you for being here. But I have a question from my side too, or rather, two-part questions. You mentioned that Aurangzeb's period was considered as golden period or golden age, but according to Sir Thomas Roy and other historians, along with that time period, who were writing down the historical facts of Mughal period, according to them, it was Jahangir's period that was considered as the golden period, especially with the trades policies of the Portuguese and Dutch East India Company coming to India. British were trying to access India at that point. Whereas in Aurangzeb's period, the financial condition of the Mughal Empire was really declining. So there is a little bit of contradiction, which I understand to what you claim. Can you please throw some light on this?
No, I disagree, of course. I mean, the peak of the Aurangzeb, of the Mughal Empire was Aurangzeb. And today, the controversy is that most historians, including Indian historians like Romila Thapar, Irfan Habib, are praising Aurangzeb to heaven, that he was an enlightened emperor, that he was secular, that he donated some railing to some Hindu temple, because Aurangzeb is the most prominent of all. Of course, Shah Jahan built the Taj Mahal. The story of the Taj Mahal needs to be told also, because even the Taj Mahal, you can see below, I mean, the Archaeological Survey of India, which should enlighten us, but actually is the most corrupt body in India, has kept under wrap the fact that even in the Taj Mahal, there still appears, now they've been hidden, but in the early 60s, there still appeared a few Hindu columns and, Hindu deities. So, Aurangzeb was, the most powerful emperor of the Mughal time. Babu was, of course, the first one, and a very, very, very bloody one, and a very savage one. And Jehangir, no doubt, under Jehangir, the Mughal Empire started to rise, and Shah Jahan it achieved prominence. But it is Aurangzeb who actually incarnated the hardline Sunni fundamentalism, which is still alive today. The inheritance today is not of Jehangir or of Shah Jahan. The inheritance today amongst Muslims, the jihadis who said that, we need to retain Islam in its pure form, that is no tolerance for non-Muslims, no tolerance for statues, no tolerance for other religions. This is the inheritance of Aurangzeb, not of Jehangir, not of Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan was, it was a mixed man. He died, after all, he died in prison. He was imprisoned by his son. So Aurangzeb is the one that we need to target, because, of course, Mr. Modi, when he renamed Aurangzeb Road in Delhi, did the first step, but it's a very small step. Unless Aurangzeb is shown as he was in history book, he will remain the hero of Indian history book and the hero of the Mughals, the greatest of the Mughals. And I disagree with you. Aurangzeb was the most powerful of all the Mughals, but because of Shivaji Maharaj, because of the attacks of Shivaji Maharaj, because of the, Shivaji Maharaj actually went to the heart of Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb kept him prisoner in Agra, and Shivaji Maharaj extraordinary escape, 7 rings of security, extraordinary courage, wit, intelligence, escaped, and then went by a different route back to Pune to his mother, who didn't recognize him. So when Aurangzeb wrote his will, Aurangzeb wrote by hand his will. We have a painting in our museum that showed that he wrote his will himself. He was a very meticulous and he was a very sincere in his hardline Sunni fundamentalism. So in his will, he said 2 things. He said, the first thing he said, never trust your sons. So that, he shows the man who says, oh no, the first thing you should do in your life is never trust your children. And the second thing he said, the greatest mistake I did in my life was to let Shivaji Maharaj escape from Agra. It is there in his will. So it shows how Shivaji Maharaj, helped to crumble the Mughal Empire, which was, I did speak with Aurangzeb, but after he died, started to crumble. And indeed, again, I disagree with the way Indian history is written. The Great Indian Mutiny, which is called the First War of Independence, is portrayed as something very noble, but actually it was done to put back on the throne the last Mughal, who was in Delhi. And indeed, they put him on the throne. Hindus fought along Muslims in this very, very bloody and very savage war, where there were a lot of atrocities on both sides, including on the British side in retaliation. But the purpose was to put the last Mughal emperor back on the throne, which they did. But then, of course, the British won in the end, and they deported that last emperor to Burma, and he died there in exile. So to say that Aurangzeb is the most important, and we need to say the truth about him.
Sir, thank you so much for enlightening us on the book and entirely new history of India and FSCT Museum. આપ સૌનો આભાર. અહીં ઉપસ્થિત સૌ મહેમાનોનો ખૂબ ખૂબ આભાર. અને ટીમ ભારત મંથનને હું ખૂબ ખૂબ આભાર માનવા માંગીશ મને આ માટે અહીં બોલવા માટે તક આપી. અને હવે નેક્સ્ટ સેશન માટે